Good morning. It's Wednesday. That means we're back on track. Garland Nixon and Scott Ritter. We're going to talk all kinds of stuff about Ukraine and Pentagon leaks and all kinds of stuff. Let's talk. Hi, Garland Nixon. Before we get started, let me give you the administrative short version. Every Wednesday morning, I do a 1 hour premium members only video with Scott Ritter on for Rockfin. Do the first 15 or 20 minutes or so on all of my platforms. Reason being, Rockfin is an alternative to YouTube. They don't have any advertisements. And most importantly, they don't censor. I always believe that, everybody on YouTube should have an alternative platform, because you might wake up one day and decide to toss us all off, and it's very likely that could happen. And if so, we should be on a free speech platform. So you can become a member over at Rockfin for absolutely free. You can see all of my videos. Please go to Rockfin and join. Additionally, the way Rockfin stays on the air, since they don't charge if they don't have advertisement or anything like that, you can become a member for free. They do allow people to become subscribers. And I do, all of the people on Rockfin do a minimum of one subscriber only show each week. This is my subscriber only show. If you can afford to be a subscriber on Rockfin, it's $14.99 a month. And if you sign up for an entire year, they give you a couple months free. It comes down to like $12 or so. If you can't, just sign up. You'll get all my other shows. But I certainly appreciate those who can. Consider it, signing up for the channel, basically, if you can do it to keep the channel going. So rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. All right, Scott Ritter, let's get started. You were involved in intelligence operations. You were involved in Pentagon operations. Your thoughts on the Pentagon League?
Look, the documents appear to be authentic, both in terms of how they're laid out, the information contained within, how they're marked, etc., the style. So I have no reason to believe that these aren't anything other than what they purport to be. First thing people have to understand, because I know a lot of people are going out, well, I don't agree with this information. I don't agree. They're obviously this, that, and the other thing. Anybody who doesn't understand that the intelligence world is populated by humans who make mistakes all the time. Bad analysis is bad analysis, whether or not it's classified, top secret, or it's classified. It doesn't have any classification. So just because a document is classified does not mean that the information contained in that document is perfect. And so I think that's the first thing that people need to understand when wrapping their head around this is don't expect that which you read in these documents to be the gospel. It's not coming from the burning bush. It's coming from humans who, in a process which is inherently politicized. That's why, for instance, you can have casualty figures that are just absurd in the extreme, because the United States is not in the business of promulgating in any capacity the notion that Ukraine could have lost 250,000 troops. General Miley's reading this document, and understand that according to some very good sources, General Miley was briefed by General Zaluzhny on the real state of affairs regarding Ukraine's casualties, and so Miley knows the truth. But he also knows that you can't promulgate documents, official U.S. government documents that put something out there you don't want out there. Look, in the Gulf War, I produced a battle damage assessment report on Scuds, and I had an infamous or famous, whatever you want to call it, run-in with General Schwarzkopf, where I was fired because I refused to certify as fact his contention that U.S. Air Force strikes had taken out 7 Iraqi Scuds. They fired me. The information went back to Washington, D.C. Colin Powell got involved. The DIA came back after computer enhancement and said, oh, no, Ritter's right. They weren't Scuds. But because we had to convince Israel that we were doing something to stop these Scuds from firing, the Scud report continued to say 7 confirmed kill Scud. It was a bald-faced lie. Schwarzkopf knew it. Everybody knew it. But we put it out there because we were trying to shape perception. So there's a reason why there's sometimes data in highly classified documents. It's just straight up wrong. That's politics. It's politics. These these leaks are damaging in ways that go beyond simply undermining Ukraine's. There was Ukraine can't launch a spring offensive now because of these documents. No, Ukraine was never going to launch a spring offensive. Period. They don't have the troops to do it. They don't have the equipment to do it. They got nothing. And the data that's contained in these reports about the status of Ukraine's of the 12 named brigades and their preparation. This is all data that was, frankly speaking, publicly available. I had assembled from my own work, my own internal development. People keep asking, Scott, how do you come up with the numbers you come up? Because I spend a lot of time going through data, and I build my own little charts just like this, tracking the different brigade structures and the equipment flowing in and how it could be organized and stuff. So what they put in that paper, I had already written down. And anybody who's worked their salt as a military analyst would have done the same thing. It was publicly available. So the notion that somehow the release of these documents undermined Ukraine's ability to carry out a spring offensive is absurd. They weren't going to carry one out to begin with because they don't have what's necessary to pull it off. And if they try it, it'll just be a massacre. The damage to these documents is twofold. One, some of these documents contain what's called special information, SI. That's the category that's on it. So I'm not here to not giving away any national secrets here. I'm not going to get into some of the other things that are on the documents that shouldn't have been on the documents because you can't even talk about them. So they're there, but I can't talk about them. But it gives away sources and method, tells how information is collected. And this is important because as you go through the document, you'll see paragraphs that then have little sub-classification headings that give the same thing. And that paragraph tells you how we collect information. And I think a lot of people are putting 2 plus 2 together and seeing that some information that was there pertaining to allies was sourced by means that might make the allies uncomfortable. I'll let you guys make up your own conclusions on that. I'm prohibited by law from talking about certain things, so I won't. But it's there, not my fault. And other people are talking about it. You can read it and decide whether or not you agree with it. But you give away capabilities. The same thing. There's a lot of people in there saying, like some people on the Russian side, this proves that America has spies inside the Russian system. Or it doesn't. Let me tell you why it doesn't. In the intelligence business, human intelligence, spies, is closely held. We just don't publish willy-nilly stuff that comes out by spies. And again, I can't talk about things, but I can refer to a book called The $1 Billion Spy. And it was about a guy named Adolf Tolkachev. He was a Soviet engineer who spied on behalf of the CIA. He spied for the CIA against the Soviet Union. They called it $1 billion spy because the information he provided to us was apparently worth $1 billion in terms of research and development on how we could counter Russian things. His information, though, was so valuable but so sensitive because you had to protect who he was and what he was and all that, that the information he received could not be just put into generic reports regardless of the classification. Because the last thing you'd want is somebody getting a hold of this going, there's only one way they could have known that, so that's from a human intelligence source. Let's start looking for the spy. Somebody made a mistake somewhere because they ended up catching him and he got executed. But my point is, I can just tell you straight up that anything that came from a spy isn't in front of Mark Milley in that document. That would be a separate binder with a special marking on it. And it would be treated in a way that nobody would have access to it. So if the information is in there, Now, there's ways that you could put the information in there. That is, if you could take that information and replicate it and say, no, no, no. Well, we learned this from this source, and so we're going to redisguise this as this. Then you could do that. And there may be some of that going on, but the classification documents, the classification markings, doesn't suggest a spy. What it suggests is national technical capabilities. That is, okay. And between us doing this and doing this, we sometimes are able to get a picture of things the Russians don't want us to know. And that's the danger. A good Russian intelligence officer, I can guarantee you they have good Russian intelligence officers. They're going to go through this document, and they are going through this document, and they're taking this document apart, piece by piece, paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, and they're doing what I would be doing. Because if I did it, whenever you receive something like this, you say, how do they know? Where did this come from? Is it open source? Or is this what is the technical capability? And then once you identify a technical capability, you further go into, who was talking about this? Was this done by a cell phone? Was this done by this, done by that? And then you figure out what they're listening to. That's why it's very bad for something like this to go public. I know why John Kirby's saying, don't do this. It's not about the content per se. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing. It's about the basically the compromising of sources and methods. And you could, just again, to give an example of why this is important, and I can talk about this because I wasn't in during the time, according to the, mainstream media, we'll say, I think Washington Post, Aviation Week in Space Technology, et cetera, they all reported that the United States launched a satellite back in the day that was specifically geared to listen in on a satellite phone that Osama bin Laden was known to be using. So a satellite was launched. It cost many billions of dollars to put this thing up in the air. It's not just building the satellite, it's the rocket system, everything, putting it up there, then servicing this. It had one mission and one mission only: listen to Osama bin Laden. And then somebody published that information, and the cell phone turned off. And now you have a multi-billion-dollar piece of junk in the air because it does nothing else. It can do nothing. It was designed for one thing. I bring that up because there could be the potential, I don't know, the potential that we have launched, because this war has been going on for a year, we have launched capabilities into space designed to focus in on singular Russian activities of interest. And there's the potential that within this document, which does talk about national technical means, intelligence was contained that could be deconstructed and linked to that. And if the Russians change the way they do business now, based upon potential, looking at it, say, oh, they're listening to this, they're watching this, they change the way they're doing business, we now have additional multi-billion-dollar pieces of junk in the air, and it blinds the United States. And whether you're a fan of American policy or not, I think everybody here knows that I am against what we're doing in Ukraine wholeheartedly. I'm American. I'm pro-American, meaning that I want my country to be safe, and I want my country, I have no problem with intelligence collection. I think the more we know, the more we can empower our elected representatives into making the right decisions. You don't have to politicize intelligence. The job of an intelligence officer isn't to make policy. My job is just to simply put the facts on the table. And so there's different ways to collect those facts. And if we end up losing access, yeah, it may blind us a little bit in Ukraine, which, because I disagree with the policies, but it could blind us to other things as well. And then problems emerge, things happen that we're not prepared for, we didn't respond to. Maybe we could have preempted it using diplomacy, but now we're in an emergency situation where we have to use the military. That's stupid. People die. That's why I'm against this kind of stuff. People keep calling me a whistleblower. I wasn't a whistleblower. A whistleblower is somebody who goes outside the official chain. When I spoke out on Iraq, I went before the United States Senate. Find me a whistleblower that did that. Find me a whistleblower that sat before the Senate and held the American government to account in public forum. You don't, because that's not how whistleblowers work. They work by leaking information to the press and things of that nature. I wasn't a whistleblower. I didn't seek to disclose classified information that could be harmful to the United States of America. The things that I talked about in public were embarrassing to the United States of America, but I went out of my way at the appropriate time not to talk about specific things that could be harmful to America, because they dealt with intelligence sources and methods that had a scope and scale beyond simply the Iraq problem. Therefore, why would I want to compromise them? Plus, I'd be violating the law. And then when the FBI went after me, as they did when I resigned, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be rotting in a class 5 prison cell somewhere, wishing I never opened my mouth. I'm not a whistleblower. We all appreciate what Julian Assange did as a publisher. And we appreciate what the other newspapers and people do when they publish things that are of interest. And I don't condemn Julian Assange. And I understand why people choose to blow the whistle. But understand this: if you release classified information in an unauthorized fashion, you done broke the law, and you're going to pay a price. And I'm in favor of making you pay the price, because it's a decision you have to make. But we can't give free rein to people to go, I'm releasing this, I'm releasing that, I'm releasing that. I don't know what the person was thinking when they released this document, whether they were thinking they were helping, hurting, hindering. What you did is put sources and methods of intelligence collection at risk. And with that, you may have put American lives at risk, or lives of our allies. Whether you agree with the Ukraine policy or not, and I'm on record saying I don't agree with it, I will not tolerate or brook, and no one should, any illegal activity that could potentially put American lives at risk. And that's what the release of these documents have done.
All right. Well, we're going to jump over to Rockfin. I want to talk about the spring offensive. It sounds to me like Tony Blinken is screaming. I hear State Department saying we got to do it. We got to do it. I'm guessing, again, this is all speculation from Garland, that there are people in the Pentagon saying, dude, you really don't want to do this. And I want to get your thoughts on whether it actually will happen and the results one way or the other, if it does versus if it doesn't. We're going to jump over to Rockfin now for premium. As I told everybody in the beginning, I like to do the first 15 or 20 minutes on all of my platforms, because I just feel like everybody should get an opportunity to see some of it. But I'm jumping over to Rockfin now. Rockfin is a great alternative platform, mainly because they don't do any censorship. Go on there. There's, you name it. There's stuff on there that makes there's conspiracy theories on there that makes my head spin. You name it, but it's great. If somebody wants to watch that, you'll like a lot of that stuff because it's uncensored. Rockfin, there's no advertisements. No charge of any kind. Please go over there. So when and if they toss me or any other of the other people off of YouTube, you can go right to Rockfin and you'll already be a member. If you choose, there's an option to become a subscriber. A subscriber to my channel would be $14.99 per month. If you join for a year, it's only $12. It's 12 or so, because they give you a couple of months free. I'm not sure how many, but you don't have to do that. You can become a member and there's no cost whatsoever. You'll see every video except the big part of this one, because I do have a subscriber only video for those who can't afford to be subscribers. Thanks a lot, everybody. We're jumping over to Rockfin. We got to talk about the spring offensive. We got to talk about what's happening, the spring offensive, or maybe not the spring offensive, and everything that's happening in Bakhmut, which seems that it might be falling. All right. First,